This short video is going to take a look at the United States government, its framework, and a couple of notes about the Constitutional Convention. Let's begin with the framework of the United States government. In this diagram, you'll see three buildings. The United States Capitol building is on the left, the White House is in the middle, and the Supreme Court building is off to the right. The United States Capitol houses the legislative branch of the United States government, and it is broken down into two houses. The lower house is the House of Representatives, and the upper house is the Senate. The executive branch of the United States government is where the president, the vice president, and members of the president's cabinet reside, and the judicial branch is the federal courts of the land and the highest court, the Supreme Court. Now, this complicated form of government was created purposely so that no one branch of government could be more powerful than the other. That's called checks and balances. Today we look at the president as being the most powerful person in the government and the person that we turn to help fix all of our problems and so on. But really, the president has very limited power in terms of what he or eventually she can do to help the country. Everything has to be agreed upon by the legislative branch, which is where all laws come from. So even if the president wants to pass a certain law, the president has to have a member of Congress, whether it be a senator or a House member, introduce that bill to the Congress. And it's from the Congress where bills begin, and the president signs those bills into law or can veto them. And if anybody chooses to challenge the constitutionality of a law, then that's where the Supreme Court would come in and possibly rule a law unconstitutional. So that's the basic framework of our government. Three branches. Each branch has power over the other branch, and no one person or branch can be the ultimate ruler of our nation. And that complicated form of government is all thanks to the framers of the Constitution, who are depicted here in this painting. The man standing on the platform is George Washington, who was voted the president of the Constitutional Convention and would eventually be the first president of the United States under the new Constitution. These guys were originally sent to Philadelphia in 1787 to refine the Articles of Confederation. They decided to throw out the Articles of Confederation and start from scratch. They created a stronger federal government, one that could levy taxes, one that could have a standing army, and one that would be better capable of defending the borders of the United States and the interests of the United States around the world. The document that they created is about 4 large parchment pages long. You see here in this picture the first page of the United States Constitution, and very boldly at the top it says, "We the people." This was a constitution for the people of the United States. What this stood for, the symbolism of that "we the people" really large at the top of this page, was to tell the world that this government is of the people. The people created this government, and therefore the people could change this government down the road. This was not a king. This wasn't a monarch. This wasn't some person who declared themselves an emperor, saying that I'm emperor for life, I represent God, that's why I should be in charge of this country or whatever. This was the people of the United States creating their own destiny and creating their own government. And remarkably, this document has stood now for over 200 years, and it's still the governing document of our nation. It was not easy getting it into creation, however. There was a number of compromises that needed to take place. If you look at this photograph, take the time to read the bottom. It has quite a humorous quote there at the bottom about compromise. Well, these delegates at the Constitutional Convention were very smart people, and they all had their own passions. They all had their own opinions. And in order to get a constitution created, they needed to compromise with each other. They needed to make agreements where they didn't get everything they wanted. They had to give something up, but in the end, both sides could agree to it. Many of the disagreements came between pro-slave delegates and anti-slave delegates, northern delegates, southern delegates, small state delegates, large state delegates. So in some cases, if people who disagreed on one topic might have agreed on another topic. You see here the two of the most important compromises you need to know. The 3/5 compromise counted slaves as 3/5 a person towards Southern representation. That is a pretty ugly compromise. And the Great Compromise, which divided the Congress into a House of Representatives with proportional representation and a Senate where each state has 2 senators. And that was a compromise between large state delegates and small state delegates to decide, would the states be treated equally or would the people be treated equally? Small states wanted to be just as strong as the large states. And of course, we're talking about population, not geography. And so that compromise needed to be worked out before a constitution could be created. All right, I hope this short video was somewhat helpful. It's not everything that's going to be on your test, but a lot of it.